The events that happened over in Boston on April 15th, 2013 were horrendous and cowardice. My thoughts, my prayers go out to everybody, families and friends of all affected that were injured, that were killed in Boston on April 15th.
This is the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, geeks of all ages, Jeffrey Powers here. Welcome to another episode of Geek Smack, episode number 258, where we smack the geek out of you like basic cable is smacking the encryption down on the TVs. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about high-paid CEOs. We're going to talk about some over-the-top television stuff. We're going to talk about Microsoft Windows Blue 8.1 and a whole bunch more. We're brought to you today by our friends over at Wirecast. Go over to geekazine.com/Wirecast PC for the PC version, Wirecast Mac for the Mac version. And of course, we're also brought to you by Roku. We're brought to you by Stitcher and many of our other friends. Let's get into your show for this week because we got a jammed-packed one. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, geeks of all ages, Jeffrey Powers here. Welcome to Geek Smack, the show where we smack the geek out of you like putting a head onto a beer. There's a device that does that now, and we're going to talk about that today. We've got a jam-packed session, so we're going to get from the top to the bottom, all the way back to the top, all the way back to the bottom, and then we're going to come back and do that. First of all, of course, I talked about my thoughts and prayers going out to everybody at the Boston Marathon. I know that there are certain cell phones that have been completely turned off so they don't activate any other devices right now. And I got a lot of friends. I've touched base with all those friends. I know that they're alive. They've been tweeting. They've been Facebooking. So we're good there. But if you've lost a friend, you know you still have the Red Cross has something to try and find your friends. And, of course, Google set up something to try and find your friends as well. So hopefully we will know everybody. We'll know everybody within the end of the week that passed away from this tragic event, and of course the people that were injured. It included an 8-year-old boy, which just completely it angers me. It really angers me, and the selfish needs of people. So we're gonna move on from there. I know I could talk about that for a whole hour, but you've probably seen the news. You've probably heard it back and forth again. Let's move on. Let's get to some tech news. First of all, came back from NAB, so we've got the obligatory badge here. Actually, I went to NAB and I went to MMS, Microsoft Management Summit. They didn't give us a badge for MMS because we were there for a day and we were there to actually do some interviews. So we were in a separate room. We only had to go to the show floor twice, and they gave us little wrist bracelets, and it wasn't worth it to keep the wrist bracelet. But anyway, this is the NAB badge. And we went there. I was there Monday and Tuesday, and then back on Thursday. Got some great video. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put it into the Hall of Badges here. Comes with our South by Southwest, our CES badges. Just all the events that I've gone to. And it's great. Now, here's the plan, just so you know, because I'm going back out there. I'm actually going back out to Vegas. I think this is the first time that I've done a double shot to Vegas in 1 month. So I'm going back out to Vegas for CA World, that's Computer Associates World. So there's probably not going to be a show this next Tuesday. And then the week after, it's still up on the fence. The sponsors haven't been totally gotten yet, but I'm still making plans to go to New York for TechCrunch Disrupt. So if you'd like to sponsor Geekazine, and the videos, I get about 40, 50 videos off of that, of all these great startup companies. Check it all out and let me know, geekazine@gmail.com. The email is down here. Of course, you can Twitter me over at Geekazine. And then the hotline is 608-205-4378. Going out to New York is not a cheap task. The flight is actually probably the cheapest thing. The hotel is what really gets you. But I bet you for a good price and subway tickets back and forth, we could probably get it down to a reasonable amount. All right, special media feed will start showing the videos of NAB. We were at the HP booth on Monday and Tuesday, and then, like I said, MMS, Microsoft Management Summit. We got some great videos. third-party companies dealing with video, so this is going to be NAB based, so don't worry about it since it does have an HP flavor to it. But these are third-party companies with HP. And it was really great because it was really cool to see some of the stuff. And we also got a couple videos on some of these high-powered desktops to edit the videos. And it kind of got my salivatory glands salivating. I think that's the word, salivatory glands salivate. Anyway, so let's do this. Let's get into your tech news for this week before I have to go back to Vegas again. And of course, this week we're brought to you by our friends over at Roku. Roku.com. You can check everything out. They just came out with the Roku 3 player. We've got some news on Roku that I'm going to talk about here really quick. But of course, if you go over to Geekazine.com/Roku, Geekazine.com/Roku, you can get the new Roku 3 with the privacy option in the remote. So basically, you plug in your headphones in the remote, and you can actually watch TV without anybody being bothered by that. So prices start at $49.99 for a regular Roku, and then of course the Roku 3 coming out with, and of course 750 channels of what's on. And more important, that they're updating all the software. So all you older Roku owners will get the new software interface, which is pretty cool. I did some stuff at South by Southwest with the new interface, and I'm really excited to see that happen. So check it out, Geekazine.com/Roku. All right, we're starting over at The Verge today. Dish Network has attempted a $25.5 billion merger with Sprint. That I have my LG phone right here with Sprint. And of course, really quick, LG just did an update. I'm now on 4.1, so I get to play with that. But of course, this is the Optimus G, LG here. So Sprint has made a play for that. If that happens, Sprint will be able to hook up with Dish, so you'll have TV, you'll have wireless, you'll have internet, 4G all in one, and a good competition to AT&T. Now that's of course this is all from the Wall Street Journal, and we'll see what happens with that. We'll see how that unfolds here. $25.5 billion. That's a big price. We'll see how Sprint takes that. And you'll turn it into a big player. Speaking of which, T-Mobile has gotten the iPhone 5 with their unlimited with their non-unlimited contract, the non-contract contract company now. So if you're looking to get an iPhone 5 and you don't want 2-year contract attached to it, you're going to pay a little bit more for the phone, but you are going to get a contract which you could probably then move back and forth if you needed to. So. All right, let's move on from there. We're going over to TechCrunch. First, Google Glass devices are coming off the production line. They're going to ship them in batches. Google has also posted developer guides, which we'll talk about in a minute here. The users signed up for Glass at I Want Glass campaign have not received an email yet. And probably the people who've already paid for the Google Glass, the developers will probably get those first. Of course, as you know, I did get selected to get a Google Glass. Now, you're probably wondering how I'm going to pay that $1,500. I think there's different types of plans. From what I read from there, it basically said $1,500, or maybe we can work out another deal here. So I'm hoping that that's the case and go from there. So, but of course, if you want to check that out, go over to TechCrunch.com. All right, let's move on. We're going to go back to The Verge. Windows 8.1 is being talked about. Of course, Blue is the name of the desktop. Windows 8.1 Blue. They're going to have an option in there where you can bypass the Metro interface. Now, I have Windows 8 on my computer over here, the desktop over here, and I love it. But yeah, the first thing I do once that loads up is I go straight to the desktop. I have my Metro interface, and I tried to put the little start button on the bottom left-hand corner, and I used a third-party program, and I really didn't care too much for it, so I took that off. But it was just basically, there's one part where it says desktop, I click on desktop, and poof, there's my desktop. So it's a little annoying, but I rarely use the Metro interface unless I know exactly which program I'm going to go into, or if my computer crashes and I need to get back up and running and just see that click, boom, and there I am. So If you want to read more on this, go over to theverge.com. Moving on from there to here, we're going over to our friends over at Gigaohm. They're talking about YouTube getting support for multiple admins per channel. Now, this is how it works, and I just did this myself, so I'm going to see what happens. YouTube for the last few months has been basically asking me to update my YouTube account with my real name. So before it was Geekazine. So it was youtube.com/Geekazine. That's not going to change. Except now my videos, instead of saying by Geekazine, will say by Jeffrey Powers. I have an opportunity to change it back, so I'm going to run it this way and we'll see what happens. But the reason why I did this is because of this multiple admin option. So basically what happens is, with the multiple admin option, I can then use Google Plus to make admins of people, which can then go into YouTube and make the fixes that, annotations, any type of stuff that go from there. So if I have a client that I'm working with video and I say, hey, I'll give you access. So if there's something that because mistakes get made, maybe I misspelled the person's name or something like that, they can go in and correct it instead of sending me an email saying, hey, this needs to be corrected. So it gets done just like that. Things like that. Or of course, if you have something like Geekazine and you have like 4 or 5 people working on Geekazine, they can go in without knowing your passwords and make those changes, which is pretty cool. But the biggest problem is you have to link it with a Google Plus account. And I really wish that I could have linked it to Geekazine rather to my personal account. But we'll see what happens. We'll see if I can make the change down the road. If you want to read more on that, go over to gigaohm.com. All right, let's go over to the nextweb.com. Last week, Google announced a thing called Google Blink. And I haven't really read up on it because that happened last week. But Microsoft has decided, it's basically a WebKit. Microsoft has decided that they're going to try and trademark the term Blink. And I'm thinking to myself, how are they going to do that? This doesn't make any sense to me. It's a word Blink. If they get the actual trademark to the word Blink, then Microsoft will be just as much of a trademark troll as many others. I suppose Microsoft has several troll trademarks out there, but this is just sad. This is just sad. We're taking the word Blink and trademarking it. Come on, that's ridiculous. If you want to read more on that, go over to thenextweb.com. I'm done with that one. I can't wait to see the WebKit, though. We'll see what happens. So, all right, let's move over to a new website called BGR.com, at least new to me, BGR.com, and they're good. So they're talking about Sony. Sony is going to help people in Japan with a 2 gigabit per second service that they're putting in there. I don't know if they're competing with Google Fiber or not, but Sony wants to get Japan all wired up by doing this 2 gigabit service. If that is the case, then good job. They're calling it Neurofiber-based service to residents of Tokyo and 6 surrounding areas. It will cost you, it'll be a 2-year service agreement, and it'll cost you 52,500 yen, which is about $535 in an installation fee. So I don't know what the service, I guess it's, here it is. The service is available for about $51 a month. 4,980 yen if you're doing the conversion, and of course if you're in Japan, it doesn't work in the United States, but if you're in Japan you can get 2 gigabits per second service. We'll see if that bumps up the ISPs and gets them all worried, because with Google Fiber now going to Austin, Texas for their second location, I can see us having some pretty fast internet within the next 10 years. I just hope it doesn't take 10 years to finally get to where I am. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, check out BGR.com for that news article. Tell me what you think. Do you want to have 1 to 2 gigabit per second service? Or do you like the internet that you like right now? Check it out. Go over to Geekazine as the Twitter handle. Of course, geekazine@gmail.com. And then, of course, the hotline is 608-205-4378. All right, let's move on from there. We're going back over to TechCrunch Disrupt. Like I said, we're going to talk about Roku, the featured sponsor of this section. And they hit 5 million streaming players sold in the United States. 8 billion videos and music tracks have been streamed from the Roku. I use the Roku a lot. We were just, before I started doing this show today, we sat down, watched a little bit of Hulu the morning after, and caught up on some news, caught up on some tech stuff, checked a couple extra over-the-top television shows out, checked out some movie previews. So, and I'm really happy with my Roku, and can't wait to get my Roku 3. But can't wait to also, it's interesting to see how this little box has basically disrupted the over-the-top television devices. Boxy's on the verge of wondering where they're going to go, if they're even going to be around. Google TV has been floundering. We've got an article about Google TV coming up. And, of course, Apple TV being the strong front runner, they got to watch out for Roku, because Roku can really put a dent in over-the-top television. So if you want to check it out, go over to TechCrunch.com. Let's move on from there. Moving over to CNET.com. Speaking of over-the-top television, Netflix, one of the over-the-top television choices for you if you have a Roku or an Apple TV, has decided to switch from Silverlight to HTML5 streaming. I don't think they haven't made all the plans just yet, but it makes perfect sense. If everybody's coding in HTML5, why not Netflix? Let's get rid of all these third-party players like Silverlight and Flash, and let's put it in HTML5. It's got all the functionalities now. There's still some non-approved functionalities that we still have to worry about. But if it works, it works. Let's get it going. So can't wait to see what happens there. If you want to read more on that, go over to cnet.com. Moving on from there, we're going over to gizmodo.com. Check this out. Now, before I talk about it, I wanted to do this. I saw up on eBay all these parts for iPhones, and I thought to myself, could I actually make myself, and at the time it was a 4S, could I actually make myself an iPhone 4S by going up on eBay and buying parts? And make, I guess you could call it a Frankenphone. So I never really tried that, but I know there's a lot of people that buy iPhones, take them apart, and sell the parts for more. But there are some Chinese companies that take apart the iPhones and then copy the parts. Now, this is what's going on. This is what's over at Gizmodo. Basically what they're doing, I'll flip this over here. Basically what they're doing is they're taking the parts, they're copying them, and then they're putting the copies back in the phones, and then they send the phones back to Apple saying that this part is faulty and it needs to be replaced. Apple then replaces the part and sends it back to this person, who then has a fresh iPhone part. And apparently they've been doing that. They've got several thousands of phone scam parts that have gone through Apple, and so now they're looking closer at that. But it's a pretty interesting read. Check it out. It's over on Gizmodo. That's how it is. Gizmodo.com. Going from Gizmodo.com to Gizmo.com. You know, we talk about things that come out of China that are bad. You know, like these people that are switching out the parts for the iPhones, but there are some good things that come out of China and Japan, and that is where this comes from here. If you like head on top of your beer, nice frothy top on top of your beer, then check this out right here. This is over on Gizmo.com, and it is an ultrasonic device that basically you set the beer on top of, and it shakes the beer to make a head, a frothy head. So if you get a beer with no head on it and you want to do that, you just set it on top of this thing, press the button, it does ultrasonic. It's basically, it vibrates, and then it brings all the bubbles up, so it makes a head for your beer. So, and of course they got a video here of somebody drinking a beer, and it's of course it's female drinking the beer. So, but if you want to check that out, and I believe you can get it yourself for about $40. So it's not too bad. And as somebody pointed out to me when I bought the Rolly a few weeks ago, it's a solution without a problem. So yes, I did buy a Rolly, just so you know. That's the, I don't know if you've seen the commercials, but basically you put the egg in, and you put a stick in, a little skewer in there, and then of course the egg cooks and then pops right out. And it's been a pretty interesting product, and I will do some video on it. Do you believe me? There will be some video on that. So, All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, geeks of all ages, that is it for part one of the show. We will get you back on the second half, and we'll do that right after this. All right, and this second half is brought to you by our friends over at Zag.com, where you can get yourself some really cool products. They got a brand new product here. It's for the iPad 2, the iPad 3, the iPad 4. It's a new case keyboard, which gives you different backlight colors. And I got a picture of it right here. So if you want your backlit keyboard to be white light, yellow light, green light, blue light, red light, whatever, you can then just get this keyboard. You can check that out. And of course, if you go over to geekazine.com/zag, geekazine.com/ZAGG, that'll get you to Zag, and that'll help Geekazine keep the lights on. And thank you very, very much. I did have a code of Geekazine for 20% off. I've been checking with them. I don't see where you put the code in. They changed some stuff around, but if you can do a checkout with a promo code, try Geekazine and see what happens there. But I'm going to check to make sure that code is still good. All right, let's move on from here. Excuse me. We're going to start back over at 9to5Mac. There we go. And Apple, we're going to talking back over at the over-the-top television. Apple has announced that there are certain third-generation Apple TVs with Wi-Fi connectivity problems. So they're doing their own type of recall or replacement program that will get you your Apple TV fixed. Now, some of the people, if you can't locate your network, if you're unable to join a network, or if you have dropped or intermittent connections, then you might want to check with them. But they have all the numbers, so they should probably just send you an email saying, "Hey, you're probably one of the people affected. You might want to get send in your Apple TV, and we'll get you a new one." Or go, I would guess, so you could walk over to your local Apple store and get that replaced from there. So it's basically any type of Apple TV that was bought from a retail store. So, and it's third generation. So if you've got a third generation Apple, you can check out this article over at 9to5Mac.com. Excuse me, a little frog in my throat right now. Move on, we'll go over to BBC Technology News. WordPress websites were targeted by hackers last week. They was first reported, and they said, hey, lock down your computers, lock down your WordPress sessions. I have done so myself with all of my WordPress sessions. There's actually two plugins I highly recommend, and I can't think of the names. One's called Sweet Captcha, which is basically a different type of CAPTCHA. It just basically says, drag the tie to the person. And you'll see a picture of a person. You'll have four pictures, like an apple, a tie, a flower, a keyboard. And then you just basically click on the tie and you move it over to the person, and it puts the tie on. That solves the CAPTCHA. I like that CAPTCHA a lot because it's fun, it's colorful, and you don't have to worry if you don't understand if that's an R or an L or a B on the regular CAPTCHA. But that's one of them. The other one is failed logon attempts. So basically, you'll get like 3 or 4 logon attempts, and then afterwards, your account gets your IP address, I believe, is the one that gets locked out. So you get a couple of those on, and of course, it's all about the admin password. If you have the admin password as password or something like that, you're going to get hacked. Make sure your admin password is pretty big. Now, it's really simple. You take 2 words, you smush them together, and then you change uppercase, lowercase. You put in numbers and special symbols. Like for instance, Geek Smack. Put them together, one word. Capitalize the G, 33K, $M, ampersand CK, exclamation point at the end. That's a pretty secure password. It does go through. They do go through dictionary. It's called the dictionary spam. So they do go through the dictionary on it, but they've got to get the right combination. And if you have a lot of different numbers, letters, and characters in there, it makes it tougher. It's easy to remember if you think Geek Smack. If you got those 2 words put together, then you're pretty golden on there. But always make sure and always change your passwords once a year at least, because you never know when somebody continually tries at your website. So if you want to check that out, go over to bbc.co.uk. All right, hey, my friends over at juststand.org, of course, they gave me this desk, and I just wanted to give them props here because we're going to change this. So I'm going to bring this down just a little bit. Basically, it's my sit-stand desk. It lets me actually stand and sit, and when I need to, and of course, standing helps you. It helps your digestive system. It helps if you've got things like diabetes. Standing a little bit more actually helps you get healthier. So I always recommend that you get a nice desk like this. And of course, go over to juststand.org to check out these desks. So thanks to juststand.org for getting me this desk because I've used it a lot in the last few weeks that I've had it. So let's get back into your Geek Smack. We're going to move over to Bloomberg.com. Twitter is said to seek deals with Viacom and NBC to feature TV. So basically, they're looking for partnerships with television networks to bring more high-quality video content and advertising to to Twitter, basically. So, and TV does do a lot for Twitter. I mean, nowadays you have a TV show, and on one of the corners of the TV, you have a hashtag, and then on the hashtag you have, whatever the show is, or if there's a specific episode, like Dallas's season finale happened last night, they probably had a hashtag of "Who Shot JR." or something like that. So so people can then start tweeting, and then when they tweet, they use the hashtag. It gets them more information. So Twitter is really going to try and use the TV systems to really emphasize Twitter more than Facebook. And I think it's the right direction for them to go because they don't have too many directions to go. And a lot of people have been gravitating to Facebook. My favorite one is Get Glue, because then I can just call it up on my phone and say, Get Glue, I'm watching Dallas, or I'm watching Storage Hunters, or something like that. And then I'm done. Poof, I set it down, I'm good to go. So, anyway, if you want to check out more on that, go over to Bloomberg.com. We're going to move from there to Reuters.com. There was a trader who admitted to a $1 billion Apple stock scheme. Basically, what happened was, without the permission of the financial institution, the Rockdale securities trader made an unauthorized purchase of $1 billion of Apple stock, which basically pretty much folded the financial service. And I guess he was trying to do it to maybe inflate the price or try and sell those stocks to people, and it didn't work. So he's basically got in trouble. He's now facing a maximum of 25 years in prison, and he will be sentenced on July 8th. So if you're going to try any of these types of schemes with stocks, here's some friendly advice. Don't do it. I'll do it like George Bush. Don't do it. Eat your broccoli. Don't do it. Anyway, if you want to read more on that, go over to Reuters.com. Crazy, crazy people. Move over there. Let's go over to TechCrunch.com. Google has put up their first buffer box. We talked about that about 6 months ago. Basically, when you purchase something, instead of them leaving it on your front doorstep in some really high traffic places like San Francisco, they will send it to a buffer box. So these are basically a set of lockers that you then go and you enter in a code or something like that, and then it'll open the specific locker with your package, so you can move on from there. The first ones have been set up at stations and coffee shops in San Francisco, and hopefully we won't have any problems with them, because the last thing we need is somebody sending something questionable and somebody opening it up in a coffee shop. Not to put out any ideas out to anybody, but hopefully there's some security measures on here. Only specific types of packages can go to this Google box. But we'll see what happens. If you want to read more on this, go over to TechCrunch.com. All right. We still got a few more articles here. And then, of course, we're going to talk about what's going on with cable and encryption. But first of all, we're going to go over to Padgadget and check this out. If you... They put out, I think it was Forbes put out the top executives list. They do it every single year, how much the people are getting paid. And they got this list right here, executive profiles. And there are a lot of people that make a lot of money, either match or even surpass what Tim Cook is doing inside of Apple. Like, for instance, Bob Mansfield. You might have seen him or Philip Schiller during any of the product launches during Steve Jobs' time, of course, during Tim Cook's time. And these are guys that get paid a lot of money to stay at Apple. And I think if I got paid a lot of money to stay at Apple, I think I'd stay at Apple. Simple as that. Of course, you got to go off on your own, like the COO did with J.C. Penney, to try and brand his own name, get his own mark out there. Of course, J.C. Penney didn't want to go anywhere, and now they're back to their old ways. I don't get it, but some people do. Some people do, and they need that little piece of paper as a coupon so they can get in and be a power shopper. So we'll see. I don't know. It's sad. But anyway, none about this. We'll go back over to padgadget.com. Other names that are on there are Eddie Lee, Senior Vice President, who's on the Internet and Services. I can barely read this. We got Craig Fredwright, Jonathan Ive, Peter Oppenheimer, Dan. Well, you can check it all out. Go over to padgadget.com. We're going to have the link in the show notes. And then let me know, what do you think? Do you think that these executives should be making as much as they do? Let me know by twittering me over, Geekazine, of course, geekazine@gmail.com. And then the hotline is 608-205-4378. All right, let's move on from here. We're going to go over to Engadget.com. You might have seen this. We talked about over-the-top TV. Here's another one. Of course, Google talked about the Asus Cube. And they brought it out for a brief second at CES, but now they're going to actually send it out. It's going to be about $129. It's spelled Cube, I guess. But I don't know why they spelled it Q-U-B-E. Oh, no. It was first spelled Q-U-B-E. Now it's spelled Cube as in C-U-B-E. So that should confuse everybody. It looks ugly. The remote looks uglier, but it's got some sort of trackpad remote on it. So we'll see what happens. They're saying April 23rd is the launch date, and they haven't made any pricing and availability, but we believe that it's about $129. So if you want to check that, go over to Engadget.com. A couple more articles, and then we'll get you on your merry way. And the first one, is my computer's starting to slow down, is over Forbes. EA has closed SimCity, Sims Local, and all other many other Facebook games, but limits its exposure to Facebook. The only thing that EA still has on Facebook are things like Plants and Zombies, Bejeweled games that will stay on Facebook because they pretty much excel there, and if they separated, they probably would be gone. It probably wouldn't hold up at all. So it's interesting to see. Is EA planning to get away from Facebook and maybe go with something else? I know Google. They could go to Google Plus, of course, but they could be creating their own system. We'll see what happens here, and of course, Forbes is going to talk about it. So check it out. Go over to Forbes.com. All right, from there, we're going to move over to SlashGear.com. Google Glass Mirror API documentation. Like I said, Google Glass has started its development. They're now doing their API documentation, and you can check that all out over at this article over on SlashGear.com. And then finally, we're going to stick on SlashGear for the second one. YouTube celebrates an anniversary of the VCR. They basically put in a silly feature to make your videos look like a VCR. And here, let me show you one of those pictures. So if you want to make it look like you've got a vertical line problem or horizontal line problem, you can actually make those adjustments in the honor of the anniversary. I think it's the 57th anniversary of the VCR. So happy anniversary, VCR. I'm glad I don't have you anymore. So, but that's it. That does it. Bring us to the main subject. We're going to get you that main subject. I'm going to do this really quick because I didn't do that before. There we go. And we will be right back. This is Geek Smack. This is the best part about juststand.org. I can actually raise this up higher so I can put down my elbows like this and not slouch over. So anyway, a couple months ago, the FCC allowed cable companies to encrypt their basic channels. It was a big fight. And FCC said, fine, okay, now we're at a point where it probably should happen. That means if you have a TV directly connected to your cable, you might need a cable box to actually get channels. So if you have an old CRT, like I have an old CRT in the bedroom, we just have it hooked up directly to the coaxial cable, and we get our channels. Some of the channels, I'm on Charter, of course. Some of those channels have already gone away for digital channels. So to me, it's already kind of happened. But Comcast announced that they will be encrypting channels over the upcoming months. Basically, it helps them with piracy. Actually, somebody who physically walks up that pole and steals cable that way. I haven't seen people do that in a long time, but it still happens. Or, another thing. This was back in the day. Is you basically ask for the internet, and then they put this little thing onto your cable. This little intermediary, and all you have to do is take the intermediary off, and poof, you have cable and internet, and you're stealing it. But you're still stealing it. And so for that, I understand why they're going to be doing this. However, for those of us who have legally purchased cable and have, because the average household has 4 TVs in it, so now to actually get your cable channels, you're going to need to purchase some sort of box or cable card, which could go anywhere from $2 a month to $5 a month or more, depending on what that device does, which means that you're going to pay an additional $6 to $15 a month. Not that big of a deal, but the more TVs you have, the higher the cost is going to be. And that's just to keep a TV in the family room, in the bedroom, in the basement, in the garage, or wherever you have it. Now, cable has taken over the DVR to bring additional charges to the cable companies on a monthly basis. It's for you to record your favorite shows. You don't have to deal with a VCR anymore, like we just talked about. You don't have to use those cable company choices. In fact, this USB on this one right here goes straight to a Hauppauge box, which I can then call up TV channels and actually also use it as a DVR. Works really well. I still have to get a little card that I put into the back of the cable box. And that card then says, okay, you're with Charter, here's your cable. So they're still getting $2 a month for that little card right there. So we still have to wonder if this is going to be a catalyst for us to start cutting our cable, with over-the-top television really starting to ramp up, with channels like HBO that really want to turn their HBO Go into more of an independent thing. You don't need HBO to get HBO Go. Are we getting to the point where we don't need cable channels anymore? Or do we really want to watch our shows like Walking Dead, Mad Men, ESPN Sports Center, Mythbusters, and all those other ones? That's basically what you get with a cable. And we might just find that people are doing one TV and trying to keep the price low. Hopefully they'll come out with a box that just basically hooks up in the basement and then wirelessly sends TV signal to little small over-the-top television boxes, so you can have the one in the bedroom, the CRT in the bedroom, and you have other ones. There's also another way to do this, and I'm going to set this up. Basically, it's called an RF tuner. So you would run the RF tuner through, and you'd need the proper jacks to do that. You'd run the RF tuner back into the cable. So basically, when you're watching TV in the other room, you're controlling it through that cable box in the living room. So I don't know if that's the choice for you, and I know a lot of people, they're watching multiple TV shows, and that wouldn't work for them. But there are options, hopefully, so they don't have to worry about that, or ultimately have to pay $6 to $15 to get all your TVs wired up. What are you going to do? Are you going to actually pay those extra costs? Are you going to complain when your cable company actually starts doing the encryption on the regular TV, or do you already have all your TVs boxed up with cable boxes? Let me know. Twitter me over at Geekazine, of course, geekazine@gmail.com, and then the hotline is 608-205-4378. I know, Bruce Barr, you sent me a voicemail message about Day in Tech History. I thank you very much for that voicemail. I have to sit down and listen to it. I think he was talking about Windows 3.1 with Day in Tech History. Windows 3.1 came out, I think it was last week. At the same time that Netflix started to ship out or set up their website for shipping DVDs. So anyway, that does it for this episode of Geek Smack. My name is Jeffrey Powers. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks a lot for listening over on Stitcher, Internet Radio, over on iTunes. If you want to get over to Stitcher and you want to set up an account, you can win yourself a $100 gift card by going over to stitcher.com/geek. I'd like to thank everybody that's watching, of course, the folks over at juststand.org for this great table, and then, of course, zag.com, and our friends over at Roku for the Roku player. So we won't be back next week, as I'll be in Vegas, but I'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Geek Smack. My name is Jeffrey Powers. Thanks a lot for watching and listening. We'll see you then, and until then, you guys geek out and take care. Be safe.